After my sister-in-law pointed at my child and said, "She won't remember you anyway," my husband shrugged it off. My daughter held on to me, terrified. I said nothing. Years later, when they tried to call to her again, the name she spoke in response made them. I still remember what my daughter was wearing that day. A little yellow hoodie with a bee on the front. She loved bees at that age. She was 3, shy around people, always hiding behind my legs when we went somewhere new. It was a Sunday afternoon. We were at my husband's mom's house for dinner. They had invited his whole family. His mom, his sister, I'll call her Rachel, Rachel's husband, and a couple cousins. The usual. I never liked going to these things. They treated me like an outsider, like I was barely even part of the family. My husband always told me I was too sensitive and made me feel like the problem was me. So I kept going. For him. For the sake of being a team. That day, Rachel was already making comments. Little digs, like always. About my cooking, about how I talk too quietly, how I dress my daughter too plain, whatever that means. I mostly ignored her. I always did. But this time was different. I was in the kitchen getting my daughter a plate of food. She was standing next to me, clinging to my leg. She didn't want to go near anyone. That's how she gets in crowded places. Nervous, quiet, holding my hand like it's the only solid thing in the world. I was about to sit her down at the little table when Rachel walked in, holding a wine glass, and just looked at us. She smiled. Not a warm smile. The kind people give when they want to hurt you, but pretend they're being nice. Then she pointed, literally pointed at my daughter and said, "She won't remember you anyway." Just like that. Loud enough for the cousins to hear. Loud enough that my husband, who was in the other room, turned his head. I froze. I didn't say anything. My daughter looked up at me, confused, then scared. Her little hands tightened around my leg. I bent down and picked her up without saying a word. And my husband? He shrugged. He laughed. "She's just joking," he said. Like that made it okay. No one else said a word. Just kept eating. Like it was normal. I didn't eat. I just sat with my daughter in the corner of the room while everyone talked over each other. I held her and told her quietly that she was okay, that mommy's here, that nothing's going to happen. But inside I felt sick. Not just because of Rachel's words, but because I didn't say anything. I let her say that. I let my husband ignore it. I stayed quiet. Again. That night, when we got home, my daughter wouldn't let go of me. She kept asking, "Why did she say that? Why did she say I won't remember you?" I didn't have an answer. I said, "It was a mean thing to say, but I'll always be here." She fell asleep in my arms. After that, I started noticing more. Things I'd ignored before. How Rachel always managed to say something cutting when no one else was around. How my husband dismissed it every single time. How his mother never stepped in. It wasn't just Rachel. It was the whole dynamic. They acted like I didn't belong. Like I was a placeholder, not a person. I want to say I stood up for myself. I didn't. I kept going to their family dinners. I kept pretending everything was fine. I didn't want to make waves. I didn't want to be the problem. But I started to fade inside. I went through the motions. Took care of my daughter. Worked. Cooked. Cleaned. Meanwhile, my husband stayed out later and later. He stopped noticing when I was upset. He stopped asking how I was. Sometimes he barely spoke to me at all. Then came the night I found out he had been texting someone else from work. I read the messages. He didn't even try to hide them. Nothing explicit, but enough. Enough to know he'd checked out. I confronted him. He apologized. Blamed the stress. Blamed me, too. Said I was emotionally distant. I stayed anyway. Because of our daughter. Because I thought breaking our family would break her. But something in me changed after that. I stopped trying to please his family. I stopped visiting. I told my husband I didn't feel safe around them, and I wasn't going to put our daughter in that environment either. He told me I was overreacting, that they were just being family. I said I didn't care. He started taking her without me sometimes, to family events. Every time she came home, she seemed off. Like she'd gone quiet inside. I asked her once if something happened, and she just said, "I don't like how they talk about you." That was it. That was the moment I knew I couldn't keep doing this. I started therapy. Quietly. I didn't tell him at first. I needed somewhere to untangle the guilt and shame and exhaustion I had been carrying for years. I told my therapist everything. She didn't tell me what to do. She just listened. And that was enough for me to start figuring it out on my own. A few months later, my daughter told me she didn't want to go to their house anymore. She said it like she was scared to say it, like she thought I'd force her to go. I told her I wouldn't. She nodded and hugged me. From that point on, I didn't send her anymore. I told my husband he could see her however he wanted, but his family was not going to be alone with her again. He fought me on it. Then he stopped. Maybe because he knew deep down I was right. Or maybe he just didn't care enough to keep arguing. Eventually, we separated. It wasn't some dramatic explosion. It was quiet, cold, like two people packing up a life they no longer recognized. My daughter stayed with me. She was stronger now. Still quiet, still gentle, but not afraid. Not like before. Then one day, maybe 6 months after the separation, his sister texted me out of nowhere. "Rachel." She said she had a baby now. She wanted to reconnect. She wanted my daughter to meet her new cousin. I didn't reply. A few days later, my daughter got a message on her iPad. From Rachel. I hadn't even realized she still had a way to reach her. My daughter showed it to me. It said, "Hi, sweetheart, it's Andy. We miss you. Come visit soon, okay?" She read it out loud. Then she looked at me and asked, "Why are they being nice now?" I didn't say much. Just, some people only act nice when they think it will get them what they want. She was quiet for a bit. Then she asked, "Do I have to answer her?" I said, "No. You don't owe anyone anything." She nodded and typed something. I didn't look. I gave her the space. But after she sent it, she told me what she wrote. She said, "My name is her daughter. That's the only name I answer to." I didn't cry. I just hugged her. Tight. That's where we are now. And honestly, I don't know what happens next. After that message, things were quiet for a while. I thought maybe Rachel would back off. Maybe they'd all just finally leave us alone. But of course, they didn't. A few weeks later, my ex-husband called me out of nowhere. I hadn't heard his voice in a while. We mostly texted short, dry things about school pickups or doctor appointments. But this time he called. He sounded different, like he was trying to be friendly. He asked how our daughter was doing. Said he'd been thinking about everything. He said he wanted to make peace. I knew something was coming. That tone he used, I'd heard it before. Every time he was about to ask for something. Then he said, "My mom's turning 60 in a few weeks. We're planning a party. I think it would mean a lot to her if you brought our daughter." I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because of how casual he made it sound. Like his family hadn't spent years treating me like trash. Like his sister hadn't told my child I was forgettable. Like they deserved a second chance just because they felt ready. I said, "She doesn't want to see them." He went quiet for a second. Then he said, "She's a kid. She doesn't know what she wants." I felt my stomach twist. I said, "She knows who makes her feel safe. And who doesn't." He said I was poisoning her against his family. That I was using her to punish them. I hung up the phone. 2 days later, I got a letter in the mail. A formal request for mediation. He wanted to renegotiate visitation. He wanted her for weekends, including overnights. And yes, he wanted to bring her around his family again. I couldn't believe it. After everything. After years of me doing the emotional heavy lifting, raising our daughter while he played part-time dad. After ignoring what she said, how she felt. Now he wanted to push his way back in? I got a lawyer. The mediation sessions were awful. He sat there pretending to be reasonable, saying things like consistency and family structure and healthy bonding time. He brought printouts of articles. He talked about the importance of both sides of the family. He said I was being too emotional and controlling. He made me sound like a bitter ex who couldn't move on. But I wasn't bitter. I was tired. Tired of being painted as the villain in a story where all I ever did was protect my daughter from people who made her feel small. Tired of him pretending to care about fatherhood when what he really cared about was saving face. Tired of being gaslit by an entire family that only remembered I existed when they wanted something from me or from her. But the worst part came during one of the sessions when they asked if our daughter would be willing to attend a short family lunch with her dad and grandmother. Supervised. In public. Just to test things out. I didn't want to say yes, but they pushed. So I asked my daughter. She sat on her bed, legs crossed, thinking hard. Then she asked me something I wasn't ready for. "Mom," she said, "if they say bad things about you when I'm not there to hear it, how will I know?" That hit me right in the chest. I said, "You'll know, because it's how they make you feel afterward." She nodded and said, "Okay, I'll go." Just once. She wanted to face them, not because she missed them, but because she wanted to see for herself. I walked her to the cafe. He was already there with his mom. She had presence. She hugged my daughter like she hadn't spent years ignoring her. Like she hadn't once said, during an argument, that she never felt like she was really ours. I waited outside. They were supposed to be there for 45 minutes. It lasted 20. My daughter walked out, face blank. Not crying. Just quiet. We didn't talk until we got home. I asked if she was okay. She said, "Grandma asked me if I wanted a new mommy." I froze. "What?" I said, my voice shaking. She looked down at her shoes and said, "She said it like a joke." But it didn't feel like a joke. I called my lawyer the next day. I wish I could say I was shocked. But I wasn't. This wasn't about family. It was about control. Always had been. Now my daughter knew it too. Not just because I told her, but because she lived it. She saw it for herself. And that changed everything. She doesn't ask about them anymore. But lately, she started asking more questions about me. About when I was younger. What I was like before I met her dad. If I was always this strong. I don't know how to answer that yet. But I think the truth is no. I wasn't. Not until I had to be. And I'm scared this isn't the last time they'll try something. People like that don't just disappear. But now I'm not alone in it. Now, she sees them for who they really are. And more importantly, she sees me. A few weeks after the cafe incident, I thought things would calm down. My lawyer sent a strong response to his mediation request. We had documentation of every message, every refusal for my daughter to go, even notes from her school counselor about the stress she'd been under since the visit started. I thought we were safe. Then one Friday night, my daughter came home from school with a folded note in her backpack. It wasn't from a teacher. It was from one of her classmates, or at least that's how it looked at first. Crayon handwriting, big, uneven letters. But inside it said, "Your dad misses you. Grandma says she loves you. They say you can come live with them if you want." There was a phone number at the bottom. A local number. My daughter asked, "Why would a kid give me this?" I stared at the paper and my stomach dropped. I called the number. It was Rachel. She laughed when she realized it was me. "We're just trying to reach out. Don't be so dramatic." I lost it. I told her if she ever went through my daughter's school again, I'd involve the police. She hung up before I could finish. The next day, I went to the principal. Showed them the note. They were horrified. They promised to look into it. A week later, they confirmed that Rachel had shown up at school drop-off pretending to be a family friend and slipped the note into my daughter's backpack. I filed for a restraining order. My ex-husband called that night, furious. Not at Rachel. At me. He said I was making his family look bad and that I didn't understand what family means. I told him, "If you don't stop this, you're going to lose her completely." He went quiet for a long time. Then he said, "You're turning her against me," and hung up. After that, things shifted. His calls became less friendly. He started showing up late to pickups, making comments under his breath about how this isn't over. Sometimes, when I'd open the door, he'd just stand there looking at me like he was trying to memorize my face. My daughter noticed, too. One night, she crawled into my bed and whispered, "He's mad at you." I asked her how she knew. She said, "He keeps asking if I still love him." I didn't know what to say. Then a new twist. I got an email from a woman I'd never met. She said she used to date my ex-husband before me. She had a child with him that he rarely saw. She wrote, "I thought you should know what he's capable of. He tried to take my son once. Without telling me. Said he had more of a right because he had a stable family." I read the email 3 times. My hands were shaking. I wrote back, asking for details. She sent me screenshots, court documents, everything. He had tried this before. I started to realize this wasn't just about his family wanting my daughter around. This was about him trying to rewrite history, to paint himself as the better parent, to make me look unstable. And he had done it before. The next mediation session felt like a performance. He showed up in a suit, acting calm, polite, like he was just concerned. He talked about my emotional instability, about how I isolated our daughter. He said she was acting out because of me. I didn't say much. I just slid the email across the table to my lawyer. His face changed when he saw it. My lawyer said, "We'll be submitting this to the court." He didn't smile after that. But the scariest part? A few days later, my daughter started getting nightmares. She'd wake up crying, saying someone was knocking at her window. I checked every time. Nothing there. Until one night, I found footprints under her window. I called the police. They took a report but didn't do much else. They told me to install cameras. I did. The next night, the cameras caught movement. A man walking past the house slowly. Couldn't see his face. But his walk. I knew it. He wasn't knocking. He was watching. I didn't tell my daughter.
But she knew anyway.
She started sleeping in my bed every night without asking. And now I'm sitting here, writing this, because I feel like something is building. Like a storm, I can't stop. They're not done. I can feel it. And this time, they're not hiding behind smiles or polite messages. This time it feels like they're preparing for something bigger. I don't know what's coming, but I know it's coming. Things got worse. In ways I didn't expect. After the night we caught the man, him, I'm sure of it, on the camera near my daughter's window, I went back to the police. I brought the footage. I showed them everything. They barely blinked. No clear face, no direct threat, they said. I asked if the restraining order I had against Rachel could be extended to him. They said I'd need to file a separate one. More paperwork. More waiting. Meanwhile, my daughter was waking up in the middle of the night, staring at the window, afraid to speak. I bought blackout curtains, floodlights, alarm locks. I was holding it together during the day, smiling at work, packing school lunches. But every night, I sat in the hallway with my back against her door, just listening, just waiting for something to happen. And then something did. It came from the school. One afternoon, I got a call from the principal. She said there had been an incident. That my daughter had been taken out of class by a woman claiming to be her aunt. That she had almost gotten out of the building. My heart stopped. I rushed to the school. My daughter was okay. One of the office staff had stopped them at the door when the woman couldn't answer basic questions, like her birthday, her teacher's name, what grade she was in. But by the time they called security, the woman had disappeared into the parking lot. She wore a hoodie, sunglasses. No cameras caught her face. But my daughter told me later in a whisper, "I think it was Rachel." I filed a report. Again. School lockdown procedures were updated. I had to meet with the school board to authorize only me for all pickups. And the worst part? When I told my ex-husband what happened, he said, "You're being paranoid. Why would Rachel do that?" I told him we had witnesses. I told him the police were involved. He said, "Maybe if you weren't filling our daughter's head with fear, she wouldn't be making things up." I swear in that moment, I stopped recognizing him entirely. Then came the custody emergency hearing. Out of nowhere, I got a letter from court. He had filed a motion claiming I was mentally unstable, that I was creating a hostile parental environment, that I was encouraging delusions of being followed. that I was emotionally harming our daughter. He had an affidavit from a child psychologist, someone I'd never met, saying that parental alienation may be present and that it could warrant a change in custody arrangements.
He was trying to take her from me.
I sat on the floor holding the letter for a long time. I felt sick. That night, I told my daughter everything. Not the full legal parts. Just that her dad was trying to say I couldn't take care of her anymore. She didn't cry. She just looked at me and said, "If they take me away, I won't talk. Not to any of them." I believed her. We went to court. I brought everything. Police reports, footage, letters, the note from school, witness statements from her teachers, from her therapist, from my doctor. He brought his mom. She wore a soft gray dress and cried on the stand. Said she missed her granddaughter. Said she worried about the isolation. Said I was unstable since the breakup, that I was keeping them apart out of revenge. But the worst part? The psychologist. He testified that he had never met my daughter, but had reviewed parent behavior patterns provided by my ex's lawyer, and that it was likely I was emotionally manipulating her. He used phrases like maternal gatekeeping and pathological enmeshment.
It was all theory.
But it sounded clinical, serious. The judge didn't rule that day. She said she needed time to review everything. That night, I barely slept. My daughter laid next to me, holding my hand the whole time. She whispered, "I don't want to go anywhere without you." I said, "You won't." But I didn't know. Not for sure. And then another twist. One I didn't see coming. The woman who emailed me earlier, the one from his past, she showed up at my front door. She had driven across state lines. She said, "I need to talk to you. There's something I didn't tell you in the emails." I let her in. She told me that after I contacted her, she went through old boxes. She found documents, recordings, a voice memo he'd left her years ago, bragging about how easy it would be to paint her as unstable. She never used it in court back then. She was too scared. But now, hearing what he was doing to me, she wanted to help. She handed me a flash drive. That night, I played the recording. My ex-husband's voice, laughing, saying, "You just have to keep your own hands clean. Make her look crazy enough, and the courts do the work for you." I had to pause it. I couldn't breathe. I called my lawyer and sent it to him. He said, "This might change everything." But deep down, I knew it wouldn't stop him. Because this wasn't just about custody. It wasn't even just about control anymore. This was about erasing me, about rewriting my daughter's reality, making me disappear without ever laying a hand. And now I had to decide, do I keep fighting inside the lines? Or do I go outside them? Because I know him.
And he's not done.
When my lawyer heard the recording, he said, "This changes the whole case. But we need to move fast." He filed an emergency motion. We attached the flash drive, the emails, the police reports, the school note. Everything. The judge agreed to hear it. It was the same courtroom, same tired carpet, same long table where I sat across from my ex. This time, though, his smile was gone. He looked pale. His hands shook when he tried to shuffle his papers. The judge pressed play. His voice filled the room. Him laughing. Him saying how to make a mother look crazy enough so the courts do the work. You could feel the air go out of the room. His lawyer went red. His mother shifted in her seat, eyes darting. When it ended, the judge said nothing for a long time. Then she said very quietly, "Mr. __, this is a serious matter. This is evidence of intentional manipulation of the court." And then, like dominoes, everything started falling. My lawyer called the school district. They found surveillance footage of Rachel outside the building the day of the attempted pickup. The police issued a warrant. Rachel was arrested for attempted custodial interference. The psychologist who testified for my ex scrambled to backpedal, claiming he hadn't been told the full context. He withdrew his statement. My ex tried to say the recording was edited, but the metadata proved otherwise. In the final ruling, the judge didn't just deny his motion. She stripped his visitation to supervised only. She issued a restraining order for me and my daughter. She referred his conduct for possible criminal charges. But here's the part one didn't expect. I didn't feel good. I didn't feel triumphant walking out of that courthouse. I felt hollow. Because even though I won, even though I protected my daughter, it hit me hard that I stayed too long. I ignored too many signs. I let his family close enough to scare my child. And no amount of court orders would erase those nights she spent sleeping with the lights on, afraid. A week later, Rachel's husband called me. He left a voicemail. He said Rachel had always been jealous, always obsessed with controlling other people's kids. He begged me not to ruin her life. I deleted it without answering. My ex tried to call me too. I didn't pick up. But then, the last twist. One night, my daughter asked me, "Mom, why didn't you say something back then? When Aunt Rachel said, I wouldn't remember you?" And that question broke me. I told her the truth. I said, because I was scared. Because I thought staying quiet would protect you. I was wrong. She just looked at me for a long time. Then she said, "I'm glad you're not scared anymore." The next day, my lawyer told me the state might press charges against my ex and Rachel. They asked if I wanted to give a victim statement.
I did.
In court, I stood up. My hands were shaking, but I spoke clearly. I told the judge about the years of silence, about the nights I sat outside my daughter's door waiting for footsteps, about the note, the window, the cafe, the school, about how his family treated me like I was invisible, and how he used that to try to erase me from my own child's life. When I finished, the courtroom was quiet. The judge ordered him into mandatory parenting classes, therapy, and supervised visitation. Rachel got probation and mandatory counseling. And me? I walked out of the courthouse and didn't look back. I changed my number. I sold the house. We moved to another city. I enrolled my daughter in a new school under my maiden name. No more window knockers. No more notes. No more family dinners where I sat silent while someone mocked me in front of my child. Now, when people ask my daughter her name, she still sometimes says, "I'm her daughter." It's become a kind of shield. And I let her have it, because she earned it. As for me, I've stopped pretending I was just a victim in the story. I made mistakes too. I stayed quiet too long. I kept showing up to dinners. I thought forgiveness meant safety. I thought silence meant peace. It didn't. I learned the hard way that sometimes protecting your child means burning bridges you wanted to believe could be crossed. And now those bridges are ash. I don't regret it. Not anymore. Because when they tried to take her name, her home, and her mother from her, we took everything back. And we're never giving it up again.